The lost human lit a fire to warm himself in the forest, and a baby dragon crawled into his lap. Before we dive into this story, drop a quick hi in the comments and tell me where you're watching from. It really helps support the channel. The ancient forest of Eldramar stretched out endlessly in all directions, its massive trees blocking out the twilight sky. Marcus Reed shivered as the alien wind cut through his tattered flight suit. He was alone, lost, and very far from home. Marcus checked his survival pack for the 5th time. The emergency beacon still blinked red, no signal. The atmospheric scanner showed breathable air but warned of dropping temperatures. Night was approaching fast on this strange world, and he needed shelter. "Just keep it together," he muttered, his breath visible in the cooling air. Survival protocol. Fire, shelter, water, food. 3 days ago, Marcus had been piloting a routine survey mission when his ship encountered an uncharted wormhole. The navigation systems failed, engines overloaded, and emergency protocols kicked in, jettisoning his escape pod toward the nearest habitable planet. The landing had been rough, destroying his long-range communicator and damaging most of his equipment. All he had now was basic survival gear, his flight suit, and dwindling hope of rescue. The planet seemed Earth-like in many ways: similar gravity, breathable atmosphere, recognizable flora. Yet subtle differences reminded him of his alien surroundings. The peculiar purple tinge to the vegetation, the strange constellations emerging in the darkening sky, and the eerie silence. No birds, no insects, no familiar sounds of wildlife. Just wind through massive trees and the occasional distant cry that made his skin crawl. Marcus gathered fallen branches and dry undergrowth. His survival training kicked in automatically as he arranged them in a small clearing between massive tree roots. The lighter from his emergency kit sparked to life, catching the kindling. Soon, a modest fire pushed back the encroaching darkness. He leaned against a tree trunk and extended his hands toward the warmth. "Control, this is Survey Pilot Marcus Reed." He spoke into his damaged communicator, knowing it was futile. Day 3 after emergency, landing on uncharted planet. Coordinates unknown. Environmental conditions Earth-compatible. Continuing survival protocols while awaiting rescue. The ritual of recording helped maintain his sanity, even if no one would ever hear it. He closed his eyes briefly, exhaustion threatening to overwhelm him. That's when he heard it, a soft rustling from the underbrush, followed by a strange, high-pitched chirp. Marcus tensed, reaching for the laser cutter in his belt, the closest thing to a weapon he possessed. "Hello," he called, feeling foolish immediately. Whatever wildlife existed here wouldn't understand human speech. The rustling grew closer. Marcus held his breath as the undergrowth parted, revealing a creature unlike anything he'd ever seen. It was small, about the size of a house cat, with iridescent scales that shifted from deep blue to purple in the firelight. 2 tiny wings, too small for flight, folded against its serpentine body. Its head was distinctly reptilian, with a tapered snout and large, luminous eyes that reflected the flames. It chirped again, revealing tiny, needle-like teeth. "A dragon," Marcus whispered in disbelief. The resemblance to Earth's mythical creatures was uncanny, though this was clearly a juvenile of whatever species it belonged to. The creature tilted its head, studying Marcus with evident curiosity. It chirped again, a sound somewhere between a bird's call and a kitten's mew. Then, without warning, it darted forward. Marcus flinched, but remained still as the small dragon circled the fire, sniffing the air. It approached him cautiously, its movements both reptilian and oddly graceful. Then, to his complete astonishment, it climbed into his lap and curled up like a contented pet. "Whoa. Hey there, little guy," Marcus said softly, hardly daring to move. The creature was surprisingly warm against his cold legs, its scales smooth and slightly elastic to the touch. It purred, there was no other word for it, and nuzzled against his flight suit. For the first time since the crash, Marcus smiled. "Well, at least I'm not alone anymore," he said, cautiously stroking the creature's back. It responded by stretching its wings slightly, revealing intricate patterns along the membrane. You need a name if we're going to be friends. The dragon looked up at him with intelligent eyes that seemed to understand more than any animal should. It chirped once, twice, then made a sound that almost resembled Ember. Ember, Marcus repeated, stunned. Is that your name, or are you just making noises? The creature chirped excitedly and bobbed its head in what looked remarkably like a nod. Ember it is, then, Marcus said, feeling a mixture of wonder and unease. If this creature could understand him, even communicate in some basic way, what did that mean about this planet? About its inhabitants? As if in answer to his unspoken questions, a deep, resonant roar echoed through the forest. Ember stiffened in his lap, wings pressing flat against its body. Marcus felt his blood run cold. That sound belonged to something much, much larger. Your parent, Marcus whispered. Ember made a soft, trilling sound that somehow conveyed negation. Another roar, closer this time. Ember trembled. Not your parent. Something else. Something dangerous, Marcus concluded. He carefully lifted Ember and placed the small dragon inside his partially unzipped flight suit, where it immediately curled against his chest. Let's find better shelter. Marcus kicked dirt over the fire, plunging them into near darkness. His eyes adjusted slowly as he gathered his meager supplies and looked for an escape route. The trees were too large and smooth to climb, and he had no idea which direction might lead to safety. Another roar, even closer. Ember shivered against his chest. Marcus made a split-second decision and headed away from the sound, moving as quietly as possible through the underbrush. The forest floor was covered in thick moss that muffled his footsteps, but also concealed hidden roots and rocks. Marcus stumbled frequently, cursing under his breath. The darkness was nearly complete now, with only faint bioluminescent fungi providing ghostly illumination. He could barely see 5 feet ahead. Suddenly, Ember squirmed in his flight suit, chirping urgently. The small dragon pointed its snout to the right, away from their current path. You want me to go that way? Marcus whispered. Ember chirped affirmatively. Trusting the creature seemed crazy, but Marcus had limited options. He changed direction, following Ember's guidance. The dragon continued to direct him with soft chirps and nudges, leading him deeper into the forest but away from the roars, which grew fainter behind them. After what seemed like hours of cautious progress, Marcus noticed a faint glow ahead. At first, he thought it might be dawn breaking, but as they drew closer, he realized it was something else entirely. A massive tree, far larger than the others, stood in a clearing. Its trunk was at least 30 feet in diameter, and carved into its base was an arched doorway emitting warm, golden light. What is this place? Marcus breathed. Ember chirped excitedly, squirming to get out of his flight suit. He carefully extracted the small dragon, which immediately scampered toward the tree door. Wait, Marcus called, but Ember paused at the entrance, looking back at him expectantly. Another insistent chirp. An invitation. Marcus approached cautiously. The doorway was easily 12 feet tall, carved with intricate symbols that seemed to shift when he wasn't looking directly at them. Warmth and light spilled out, along with a scent like cinnamon and wood smoke. I really hope I'm not about to be eaten, Marcus muttered, then stepped through the doorway. The interior defied all logic and expectation. Instead of a cramped hollow, Marcus found himself in a vast, circular chamber that couldn't possibly fit inside the tree. Bookshelves lined the curved walls, reaching up at least 20 feet to a domed ceiling painted with constellations. A large fireplace dominated one wall, its flames dancing merrily without visible fuel. Comfortable-looking furniture was arranged throughout. Chairs, tables, cushions, all sized for beings larger than humans. And seated in a massive armchair near the fire was such a being. She, resembled the mythical centaurs of Earth legend, but with significant differences. Her lower body was reptilian rather than equine, covered in iridescent scales similar to Ember's, but in shades of deep green and gold. Her upper body was humanoid and feminine, with 4 arms instead of 2, and skin the color of burnished copper. Her face was almost human, with high cheekbones and almond-shaped eyes that glowed amber in the firelight. Instead of hair, delicate frills extended from her skull, currently lying flat in what Marcus hoped was a relaxed position. "Welcome, Star Traveler," she said in perfect English, her voice melodious and deep. "I see you've met young Ember." Marcus stood frozen, unable to process what he was seeing and hearing. Ember chirped happily and scampered over to the centaur-like being, who reached down with one of her forearms to stroke the small dragon affectionately. "You speak my language," Marcus finally managed. The being smiled, revealing teeth that were slightly sharper than human. "I speak all languages. It is my gift and my duty as keeper of the grove." She gestured to an empty chair across from her. "Please sit. You must be exhausted after your ordeal." Marcus hesitated, then moved to the offered seat. It was surprisingly comfortable despite being designed for a larger frame. "Who are you? What is this place? And how do you know I'm from space?" "So many questions," she replied, her frills rippling in what might have been amusement. "I am Solara, keeper of the sacred grove of Eldramar. This is my library and sanctuary, where I preserve the knowledge of all who pass through this realm." She gestured around at the countless books. "As for how I know you're from beyond our skies, we saw your metal shell fall 3 days ago. Few local creatures wear coverings like yours, and none carry devices that blink and speak." She nodded toward his damaged communicator. Marcus tried to organize his thoughts. "This planet, does it have a name?" "We call it Eldramar, same as this forest, though it has many names among the different peoples who dwell here." Solara poured a steaming liquid from a pot into a cup sized for human hands and offered it to him. "Drink. It will restore your strength." The beverage smelled like herbal tea with unfamiliar spicy notes. Marcus hesitated, then took a sip. Warmth immediately spread through his body, and the aches from days of survival eased. "Thank you," he said sincerely. "I'm Marcus Reed, survey pilot from Earth." "Earth," Solara repeated, tasting the word. "I have not encountered your kind before, though I have lived many of your lifetimes." She leaned forward, her amber eyes intent. "You came through the veil, did you not? The shimmering pathway between realms." "If you mean a wormhole, yes. It appeared without warning. My ship's systems failed, and I barely escaped in my pod." Solara nodded sagely. "The veil opens rarely and unpredictably. Many have passed through in both directions over the eons, but few find their way back." Marcus felt his heart sink. "Are you saying I'm stranded here? Forever?" "Not necessarily," Solara replied. "The veil follows patterns, appearing in cycles. With the right knowledge, one might predict its next opening." She gestured to her books. "I have records stretching back thousands of years. Perhaps we can determine when the veil might open again near Eldramar." Hope flickered in Marcus's chest. "You'd help me?" "What?" Solara's expression grew serious. "Because a storm is coming, Marcus of Earth. A conflict that has been brewing for centuries. Your arrival may not be coincidence, and young Ember's choosing of you is certainly significant." "Choosing me? I don't understand." Ember chirped and fluttered back to Marcus, climbing onto his lap again. Solara watched with evident interest. "Dragonkin do not bond easily with outsiders," she explained. "They are intelligent beings with powerful magic in their blood. For Ember to trust you so quickly, to lead you to my sanctuary, it suggests a connection beyond chance." Marcus stroked Ember's scales gently. "Magic? Are you saying dragons are real? And magical?" "Real, certainly. As for magic, on your world, might you call it highly advanced biological adaptation? Evolutionary traits that seem impossible by conventional understanding." Solara's frills rippled again. The division between science and magic is often merely a matter of comprehension. Marcus felt a headache forming. This was too much to process after days of stress and survival. "What is this conflict you mentioned? And what does it have to do with me?" Solara's expression darkened. "The Scorch Lords. Ancient dragon kin who believe they should rule all of Eldramar. For centuries, they've been banished to the Ashen Mountains, but recently they've grown more aggressive, attacking villages, burning forests." She gestured to Ember. "They slaughtered this one's nest. Ember is the last of his clutch. Marcus looked down at the small dragon with new understanding. I'm sorry, he whispered to Ember, who trilled sadly. The Scorch Lords seek an artifact of great power, Solara continued. The heart of Eldramar, which resides in this very grove. If they obtain it, they could permanently alter the balance of this world, perhaps even use it to open the veil at will. And you think I can help somehow? Marcus asked incredulously. I'm just a pilot. I don't know anything about magic or artifacts or dragon wars. Solara fixed him with her amber gaze. You are human. Your kind has a reputation across the realms for adaptability, creativity, and an inexplicable ability to survive against impossible odds. And Ember chose you, which suggests you have qualities we need. Before Marcus could respond, a distant alarm sound echoed through the sanctuary. Solara's frills stood rigid with alarm. The outer wards have been breached, she said, rising quickly. The Scorch Lords have found us sooner than I feared. Marcus stood as well, Ember clutching his flight suit. What do we do? We must move the heart immediately, Solara said, moving to a concealed panel in the wall. She pressed her 4 hands against it in a complex pattern, and the section slid open to reveal a small chamber. Inside, floating in a beam of light, was a crystalline object about the size of a human heart, pulsing with inner fire. Is that the heart of Eldramar? Yes. Solara carefully removed it from the beam and placed it in an ornate box. We must take it to the ancient temple at the center of the grove. There, it can be better protected. She handed the box to Marcus. You must carry it. The Scorch Lords will expect me to have it. Me? But I don't know where this temple is or how to protect a magical artifact. Ember will guide you, Solara said firmly. And the heart itself will help shield you from detection. I will create a diversion. A tremendous roar shook the sanctuary, much closer than before. Dust fell from the domed ceiling. They're here, Solara said grimly. She moved to another wall and pressed her hands to it, revealing a hidden passage. This will lead you toward the temple. Ember knows the way from where it emerges. Go now quickly. Marcus clutched the box, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders along with the strange warmth of the artifact within. What about you? Solara's 4 arms moved in complex patterns, and suddenly she was holding weapons, a staff that crackled with energy and a curved blade that seemed to be made of living crystal. I am the keeper. I have defended this grove for centuries. Now go. Ember chirped urgently, tugging at Marcus's flight suit. With a final nod to Solara, he ducked into the passage, the small dragon leading the way. The tunnel was narrow but tall enough for him to walk upright. Bioluminescent fungi provided dim light, revealing smooth wooden walls that seemed to be part of the tree's living structure. The passage twisted and turned, occasionally branching. At each junction, Ember confidently chose a direction, leading them deeper under the forest. Behind them, Marcus heard muffled roars and crashes, the sounds of battle. He picked up his pace, following Ember's increasingly urgent chirps. After what seemed like an eternity of running through identical tunnels, they emerged into a small cavern where several passages converged. Ember stopped suddenly, wings extended in alarm. Marcus froze too, listening. Heavy breathing echoed from one of the other tunnels. Something large was approaching. Hide, Marcus whispered, looking frantically around the cavern. There was nowhere to conceal themselves, nowhere to run except back the way they'd come. Ember chirped softly and nudged the box containing the heart. Marcus opened it hesitantly. The crystalline object pulsed with inner fire, casting warm light across his face. What do I do? He whispered. The breathing grew louder. A scraping sound, claws on stone. Acting on instinct, Marcus touched the heart. Warmth flooded through him, and suddenly he knew what to do. He closed his eyes, focused on the desire to remain unseen, and felt the heart respond. A sensation like a warm blanket settled over him and Ember. Just in time, a massive shape filled the entrance to one of the tunnels, a dragon the size of a bus, with scales like burnished bronze and eyes that glowed with malevolent red light. It filled the cavern with its presence, its heat, its palpable malice. The Scorch Lord sniffed the air, turning its massive head from side to side. It looked directly at where Marcus and Ember stood, frozen in terror, but its gaze passed over them as if they weren't there. After a tense moment, it continued down another tunnel, its heavy tail scraping the walls as it disappeared. Marcus released a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. The heart pulsed in his hands, its light dimming slightly as the concealment effect faded. "That was too close," he whispered to Ember, who chirped in agreement. "Let's keep moving before it comes back." They continued through the tunnel system, emerging eventually into the forest again. Night had fully fallen, but the moon, larger and more golden than Earth's, provided enough light to see. Ember led him through the underbrush, away from Solara's tree sanctuary, which Marcus could see was now surrounded by ominous red light and smoke. "I hope she's okay," he said, feeling guilty for leaving her to fight alone. Ember chirped reassuringly and nudged him forward. They traveled for hours through the moonlit forest, the terrain gradually changing. The massive trees thinned out, revealing stone formations that looked increasingly artificial. Columns, partial walls, paved pathways overgrown with vegetation. They were entering ruins of some ancient civilization. At the center of these ruins stood a structure that had weathered the centuries better than its surroundings, a circular temple of white stone, its columns still intact, supporting a domed roof. Moonlight filtered through an oculus at the center of the dome, illuminating a pedestal in the middle of the temple floor. "Is this it?" Marcus asked. Ember chirped affirmatively. As they approached the temple, Marcus felt the heart growing warmer in its box, almost eager. But just as they reached the first step leading up to the temple, a shadow passed overhead, blocking the moonlight momentarily. Marcus looked up to see a massive shape circling, another Scorch Lord, larger than the one in the tunnels. It had spotted them. "Run!" Marcus shouted, sprinting up the steps with Ember right beside him. They reached the temple interior just as a gout of flame scorched the steps behind them. The dragon landed outside with a ground-shaking impact, too large to enter the temple, but perfectly capable of burning it down around them. Marcus ran to the pedestal, which had a depression perfectly sized for the heart. He removed the artifact from its box, marveling briefly at its beauty, like a diamond filled with living flame. As the Scorch Lord drew breath for another blast, Marcus placed the heart on the pedestal. Light exploded outward from the artifact, filling the temple with blinding radiance. The pedestal began to sink into the floor, taking the heart with it. Ancient machinery groaned to life somewhere beneath them. The stone floor around the pedestal split and reconfigured, revealing a spiraling staircase leading downward. "Down there?" Marcus asked. Ember chirped and darted toward the stairs. Another blast of dragon fire hit the temple roof, and stone fragments rained down around them. "Down there it is." They descended the spiral staircase as the sounds of destruction continued above. The stairs seemed to go on forever, leading deep beneath the ruins. Finally, they emerged into a vast underground chamber unlike anything Marcus had seen before. Technology and magic blended seamlessly here. Crystalline structures pulsed with energy alongside what looked like computer terminals. The heart of Eldramar floated at the center of the chamber, connected to the surrounding technology by beams of light. And standing before it, waiting, was Solara. "You made it," she said, her copper skin scorched in places, one of her 4 arms hanging limp. "And just in time. How did you get here before us?" Marcus asked, stunned. "There are many paths through the grove for those who know them," Solara replied with a slight smile. "The Scorch Lords breached my sanctuary, but I managed to escape. They'll be following, though. We don't have much time." Marcus looked around the chamber. "What is this place?" "The true heart of Eldramar," Solara explained. "Built by the ancients who first settled this world. They understood the connection between realms, the nature of the veil, and they built this place to control it." She gestured to the technology surrounding them. "With the heart as a power source, this facility can open a pathway to your world. You could go home, Marcus." Hope surged through him, but uncertainty followed. What about the Scorch Lords? What about Ember? As if in answer, Ember chirped and climbed up to Marcus's shoulder, nuzzling against his cheek. I believe Ember wishes to go with you, Solaris said. The last of his kind here, perhaps he seeks a new beginning. As for the Scorch Lords, a tremendous crash from above interrupted her. Dust and stone fragments showered down from the ceiling. They found the temple, Solaris said grimly. We must act quickly. She moved to one of the crystal terminals and placed her 3 functioning hands upon it. The entire chamber hummed to life, lights brightening, energy crackling between the crystalline structures. The heart of Eldramar pulsed faster, its light intensifying. I can open a pathway to your world, Solaris said, her voice strained with effort. But someone must remain to seal it afterward, or the Scorch Lords could follow. Marcus understood immediately. You're staying. Solara nodded. It is my duty as keeper. And my honor. Another crash from above, closer this time. Roars echoed down the spiral staircase. They're coming, Marcus said. He looked at Ember, then at Solara. There has to be another way. Come with us. Solara shook her head. The pathway requires precise calibration. Someone must operate the controls here. Her amber eyes met his. Take Ember. Protect him. Perhaps someday, when he's grown, you can find a way back. Dragonkin live very long lives, and they never forget those they bond with. The chamber shook violently. Part of the ceiling collapsed, revealing the night sky above and the silhouettes of multiple dragons circling. Now, Marcus. Solara's hands moved across the crystal terminal. The heart of Eldramar flared blindingly bright, and a portal opened in the air before them. A shimmering doorway that somehow showed the interior of Marcus's crashed escape pod. How? The heart connects to what you desire most, Solara explained. Now go before it's too late. A massive dragon had appeared at the opening in the ceiling, jaws opening to unleash destruction. Marcus clutched Ember to his chest and ran for the portal. At the threshold, he turned back one last time. Thank you, Solara. The keeper smiled, even as she worked the controls with her 3 good arms. May your fire always burn bright, Marcus of Earth. He stepped through the portal just as dragon fire filled the chamber behind him. The shimmering doorway closed instantly, leaving him standing in his damaged escape pod, alarms blaring around him. Ember chirped in confusion, wings spreading slightly. It's okay, Marcus said, stroking the small dragon reassuringly. We're home. My home, anyway. And I guess yours now, too. The pod systems were coming back online, emergency power restored. The location beacon activated, and the communications system crackled. Unidentified escape pod. This is Orbital Rescue Delta. We've locked onto your signal. Stand by for retrieval. Marcus looked down at Ember, who gazed back with intelligent, curious eyes. This is going to be interesting to explain, he murmured. The small dragon chirped in what sounded remarkably like laughter. Outside the pod's view screen, Earth's familiar blue curve filled the horizon. They had returned not just to his world, but to orbit above it. Somehow, the heart of Eldramar had sent them exactly where they needed to be for rescue. As the rescue ship approached, Marcus wondered what awaited them. How would Earth react to a living, intelligent dragon? How would Ember adapt to a completely new world? And what if Solara and Eldramar, had the Keeper survived? Would the Scorch Lords find another way to pursue the heart's power? For now, those questions would have to wait. They were alive, they were safe, and they were together. Sometimes, that had to be enough. Ember curled up in his lap, just as he had done by that first campfire in the alien forest, and Marcus felt a sense of purpose settle over him. Whatever came next, he would protect this last dragon of Eldramar. And perhaps, someday, find a way back to help Solara fight the coming storm. The rescue ship docked with a gentle thud. New adventures awaited. Unidentified escape pod. Prepare for boarding. Do you require immediate medical assistance? The voice from the rescue ship crackled through the damaged comm system. Marcus looked down at Ember, who was now peering curiously at the control panel's blinking lights. No immediate medical assistance needed, he replied, then hesitated. But I do have a situation. Copy that. Stand by for docking procedure. Marcus gently lifted Ember from his lap. Listen, little one. The people coming aboard might be frightened of you. Where I come from, dragons aren't supposed to exist. Ember tilted his head, regarding Marcus with those intelligent eyes. Then, to Marcus's astonishment, the small dragon's scales shimmered and changed color, darkening to a deep black that absorbed light. His distinctive draconic features, the wings, the elongated snout, the frilled ears, seemed to retract and reshape until what sat before Marcus looked remarkably like an earth house cat with unusually luminous eyes. You can shapeshift? Marcus whispered, stunned. Ember, now cat-shaped, made a sound between a purr and a chirp, looking quite pleased with himself. That's incredibly convenient, Marcus said, just as the airlock cycled. The outer door of his escape pod slid open to reveal 2 rescue personnel in standard orbital authority uniforms. Survey pilot Reed, the first rescuer asked, scanning him with a medical device. Captain Lauren Hayes, orbital rescue. Are you injured? Just tired and hungry, Marcus replied, fighting to keep his voice casual. My pod went through some kind of spatial anomaly. I've been stranded for days. The second rescuer was examining the pod systems. Readings are bizarre. According to this, you've been gone for 3 weeks, but the pod's life support shows only 3 days of use. Time dilation, Marcus suggested, improvising. The anomaly must have affected temporal flow. He picked up Ember, who played the part of an ordinary cat perfectly, even adding a convincing meow. This little guy kept me company on the planet where I landed. Atmosphere was Earth-compatible. Lots of Earth-like fauna too, apparently. Captain Hayes raised an eyebrow. You found a cat? On an alien planet. Marcus shrugged. Convergent evolution? Or maybe someone else passed through that anomaly before me. Either way, he's harmless and seems domesticated. Hayes gave Ember a cursory scan. Biosignatures are unusual but non-threatening. You'll both need to go through decontamination and quarantine protocols once we reach Orbital Station Alpha. Of course, Marcus agreed, relieved they weren't immediately suspicious. As they transferred to the rescue vessel, Marcus whispered to Ember, "Nice trick. Any other surprises I should know about?" Ember simply purred, curling against his chest. The journey to Orbital Station Alpha took 6 hours, during which Marcus provided a carefully edited account of his experience. He mentioned the wormhole, the crash landing on an Earth-like planet, and his survival efforts, but omitted any mention of Solara, the Scorched Lords, or the true nature of his feline companion. Some truths were too fantastic and potentially dangerous to share without careful consideration. Orbital Station Alpha loomed large in the view screen as they approached, a massive wheel-shaped structure in low Earth orbit, the primary hub for solar system exploration missions. Marcus had departed from here just 3 weeks ago on what should have been a routine survey of the outer planets. Now he was returning with secrets that could change humanity's understanding of the universe. Welcome back to civilization, Pilot Reed, Captain Hayes said as they docked. Medical team and quarantine officers will meet us at the airlock. Standard procedure for unplanned exoplanet contact. Marcus nodded, stroking Ember's fur nervously. What happens to him? Your pet? He'll be examined and quarantined too. If he passes biosecurity, you'll probably be allowed to keep him. Hayes gave him a curious look. You've formed quite an attachment. He saved my life, Marcus said simply. It wasn't a lie. The quarantine procedures were exhaustive. For 3 days, Marcus and Ember underwent countless scans, tests, and examinations. The medical staff was particularly intrigued by Ember, whose biology showed several anomalies they couldn't explain but deemed non-hazardous. Marcus claimed ignorance, suggesting that whatever planet the cat had evolved on must have produced some unique adaptations. Finally, they were cleared and assigned temporary quarters on the station, while Marcus's case was reviewed by Survey Command. Alone in their small cabin, Marcus collapsed onto the bed with relief. That was close, he told Ember, who immediately shifted back to dragon form once the door was secured. They're suspicious, but not enough to keep us locked up. Ember chirped, stretching his wings and tail after days of maintaining his feline disguise. He flew a small circuit around the room. His wings were apparently functional in the station's reduced gravity before landing on the desk beside Marcus's terminal. Careful, Marcus warned. Everything on the station is monitored. We need to be strategic about this. The dragon chirped questioningly, head tilted. Strategic about what? About everything. Marcus ran a hand through his hair. I can't just announce to the world that dragons exist, or that there are other realms with magic and ancient conflicts. Best case scenario, they think I'm crazy from trauma. Worst case, they take you away for dissection and experimentation. Ember shuddered visibly at this, wings folding tight against his body. Exactly, Marcus said grimly. So we play it cool. I'll debrief with command, get reassigned, hopefully to Earth. Then we can figure out our next steps. The terminal chimed with an incoming message. Marcus checked it. A summons to meet with Survey Command the following morning. Sooner than I expected, he muttered. I'd better prepare my story. That night, Marcus dreamed of Eldramar, of massive trees and moonlight filtering through alien leaves, of Solara's sanctuary burning as scorched lords circled overhead. He woke with a start to find Ember perched on his chest, chirping anxiously. Just a dream, Marcus assured the small dragon, though he wasn't entirely convinced. The connection between himself, Ember, and Eldramar felt tangible, as if threads of fate still bound them to that distant realm. The next morning, Marcus presented himself to Survey Command, a panel of 5 senior officers who oversaw all exploration missions. Commander Nathan Blake, a stern man with graying temples, led the questioning. Pilot Reed, your report indicates you encountered an uncharted spatial anomaly that transported you to an Earth-like planet approximately 17 light-years from your original position. Is that correct? Yes, sir, Marcus replied. He had chosen the distance carefully, far enough to be significant, close enough to be plausible. And you survived on this planet for 3 days before the anomaly reappeared, allowing you to return to our solar system? That's correct, sir. Commander Blake leaned forward. Your pod's data logs are corrupted, and the navigation system shows readings that our analysts can't interpret. Can you explain this? Marcus maintained a calm expression. The anomaly generated intense electromagnetic radiation that damaged most of my systems. I was lucky the life support remained functional. The questioning continued for hours, with Marcus carefully navigating between truth and fiction. He described the planet's environment truthfully, but omitted any mention of intelligent life. He explained his survival techniques accurately, but left out his encounter with Solara. And he presented Ember as a simple native animal he had befriended, one that happened to resemble Earth cats enough to make interspecies bonding possible. Finally, Commander Blake sat back. Your experience is unique, Pilot Reed. We're dispatching a research vessel to the coordinates you've provided to investigate this anomaly. In the meantime, you're placed on medical leave for 30 days, after which you'll undergo psychological evaluation before returning to active duty. Thank you, sir, Marcus said, relieved. May I return to Earth during my leave? Granted. There's a shuttle departing tomorrow. Report to medical for final clearance before departure. Blake's expression softened slightly. And Reed, despite the irregular circumstances, your survival shows remarkable resourcefulness. Well done. Marcus saluted and exited the briefing room, exhaling slowly once the door closed behind him. They believed his edited story, or at least weren't immediately challenging it. That would buy him time to figure out what to do next. Back in his quarters, Ember was waiting anxiously, still in cat form as a precaution. Marcus secured the door and gave him the all-clear to transform. We're going to Earth tomorrow, he told the dragon, who chirped excitedly. But we need to be careful. I have an apartment in Seattle, fairly private. We can lay low there while we figure things out. Ember nodded, then did something unexpected. He flew to Marcus's terminal and used his snout to type on the keyboard with surprising dexterity. Words appeared on the screen. Find more heart. Marcus stared in shock. You can write? And you know English? Ember chirped affirmatively, typing again. Solara teach many languages. Heart on Earth too. There's another heart of Eldramar on Earth. Marcus asked, stunned. How is that possible? Many worlds connected. Heart fragments and all. Find Earth heart. Help Solara. The implications were staggering. If fragments of the heart existed on multiple worlds, if the boundaries between realms were more permeable than anyone realized. You're saying we could potentially help Solara fight the Scorch Lords from here? Ember nodded emphatically. Do you know where this Earth fragment is? The dragon hesitated, then typed. Field direction. Not location. Need get closer. Marcus sat heavily on the bed. So we're going on a treasure hunt for a magical artifact that might help save another dimension. And I thought coming home would be the end of the adventure. Ember chirped in what sounded distinctly like laughter. The shuttle ride to Earth the next day was uneventful. Ember maintained his cat disguised flawlessly, even earning affectionate pets from the flight attendant. As they descended through the atmosphere, Marcus gazed out at the familiar blue and green of his home planet, feeling both relief and a strange sense of detachment. After what he'd experienced on Eldramar, Earth seemed simultaneously precious and somehow smaller than before. They landed in Seattle under gray, drizzling skies. Marcus's apartment was just as he'd left it 3 weeks ago, slightly dusty, bills piled on the counter, plants drooping from lack of water. It felt surreal to return to such ordinary concerns after facing dragon lords and interdimensional travel. Ember immediately began exploring, sniffing every corner and examining objects with intense curiosity. He seemed particularly fascinated by the television and nearly jumped out of his scales when Marcus turned it on. "Welcome to Earth," Marcus said, smiling at the dragon's wonder. "It's no magical forest, but it's home." That night, after Ember had settled into sleep on a pillow nest Marcus made for him, he sat at his computer and began researching. If fragments of the heart existed on Earth, perhaps there were historical records, myths, or legends that might provide clues. He searched for accounts of crystalline objects with unusual properties, artifacts that generated unexplained energy, stones that seemed to respond to human thought or emotion. The results were overwhelming. Thousands of myths from cultures worldwide described magical crystals and stones. The Holy Grail, the Philosopher's Stone, the Crystal Skulls, the Shinto Mirrors. How could he possibly narrow it down? He was about to give up for the night when Ember suddenly perked up, wings extending. The dragon flew to the window and pressed against the glass, chirping with excitement. "What is it?" Marcus asked, joining him. Ember pointed with his snout. In the distance, barely visible through the drizzle, stood Mount Rainier, its peak shrouded in clouds. "The mountain? You feel something there?" The dragon nodded emphatically. Marcus checked the time, nearly midnight. "We'll go tomorrow," he promised. First thing in the morning. That night, his dreams were more vivid than before. He saw Solara, wounded but alive, hiding in the ruins of her sanctuary. He saw Scorch Lords searching the forest, burning ancient trees in their rage. And he saw something new, a vision of Mount Rainier split open, revealing a chamber of light at its core, where something pulsed like a living heart. He woke at dawn, Ember already awake and watching him intently. "You saw it too, didn't you?" Marcus asked. The dragon nodded. "Then we'd better get moving." They set out as the sun rose, Marcus driving his old electric car toward the mountain with Ember hidden in a backpack. The dragon had insisted on bringing one item from the apartment, a small crystal paperweight that Marcus had owned for years, a souvenir from his first visit to the mountain as a child. Something about it seemed to resonate with Ember's senses. As they approached Mount Rainier National Park, the morning fog began to lift, revealing the majestic peak against the blue sky. Marcus parked at the visitor center and studied the trail maps. "We can't exactly follow the regular hiking routes if we're looking for a magical artifact," he muttered to Ember, who peered from the backpack. "Any sense of which direction we should go?" The dragon pointed toward the eastern slope, away from the main trails. "Of course it would be the difficult way," Marcus sighed. "Well, at least I packed supplies." They set off, Marcus claiming to be a day hiker to the few rangers they encountered. Once they were beyond the regular trails, Ember emerged from the backpack and flew short distances ahead, guiding their path. The terrain grew increasingly difficult, dense forest giving way to rocky slopes and narrow ravines. By midday, they had climbed high enough that the air was noticeably thinner, the temperature dropping steadily. "We're going to need to find shelter before dark," Marcus said, checking his watch. "Mountains are dangerous at night, even without considering magical quests." Ember chirped in agreement, then suddenly froze, wings extended. He darted forward, disappearing around a rocky outcropping. "Ember," Marcus called, rushing after him. He rounded the rocks to find a sight that stopped him in his tracks. A small cave entrance, nearly invisible unless you were looking directly at it, was set into the mountainside. Ancient symbols were carved into the stone around it, symbols Marcus recognized from Solara's sanctuary on Eldramar. "How is this possible?" he whispered. Ember chirped excitedly, flying in small circles before darting into the cave. "Wait, we need light." Marcus fumbled in his pack for a flashlight, then cautiously followed the dragon into the darkness. The cave entrance was narrow, forcing him to duck, but it quickly opened into a wider tunnel. The beam of his flashlight revealed more symbols carved along the walls, flowing scripts and geometric patterns that seemed to shift when viewed from different angles. The tunnel descended deep into the mountain, leading them downward in a gentle spiral. The air grew warmer rather than colder, and a faint luminescence began to emanate from the stone itself, rendering the flashlight unnecessary. After nearly an hour of careful descent, the tunnel opened into a vast cavern. Marcus gasped at the sight. The cavern was enormous, its ceiling lost in shadows above. Natural columns of stone rose from floor to ceiling, many carved with the same symbols that had lined the tunnel. At the center stood a structure that defied explanation, a perfect circle of standing stones, each twice Marcus's height, surrounding a pedestal that could have been the twin of the one in the temple on Eldramar. And on that pedestal, pulsing with inner light, was a crystalline object the size of a human heart. "The earth fragment," Marcus breathed. Ember chirped in confirmation, flying toward the circle of stones. As they approached, Marcus felt a strange resistance, as if walking against a current. The air seemed to thicken around the stone circle, creating an invisible barrier. "How do we get through?" he wondered aloud. Ember chirped and pointed with his snout at Marcus's pocket, where he had placed the crystal paperweight from his apartment. Understanding dawned. Marcus removed the small crystal, which now glowed with the same inner light as the heart fragment. "This is part of it, isn't it? That's why you wanted to bring it." The dragon nodded. Marcus held the paperweight toward the barrier. The resistance immediately vanished, allowing them to step into the circle of stones. As they approached the pedestal, the heart fragment pulsed more rapidly, its light intensifying. "What do we do now?" Marcus asked. Before Ember could respond, a voice spoke from behind them, a human voice, but with the same melodious quality as Solara's. "You return the key to its source, traveler." Marcus spun around to see a woman standing just inside the stone circle. She appeared to be in her 60s, with silver-streaked dark hair and the weathered face of someone who had spent a lifetime outdoors. She wore hiking clothes and carried a walking staff carved with familiar symbols. "Who are you?" Marcus asked, instinctively moving to protect Ember. The woman smiled. "I am Elena, keeper of Earth's heart, just as Solara is keeper of Eldramar's." She approached slowly, her gaze fixed on Ember. "And this is a dragonkin, far from home. How remarkable. You know about Eldramar? About Solara?" Marcus couldn't hide his shock. The realms have always been connected, though few remember the old ways. Elena gestured to the stone circle. "This place has stood since before humans built cities, tended by an unbroken line of keepers. We maintain the balance between worlds, ensure the boundaries remain intact." Her expression grew concerned. "But something has changed. The barriers are weakening. I've felt disturbances for months, but never expected a visitor from Eldramar or a dragonkin." Ember chirped and flew to hover before Elena, who extended her hand in greeting. The dragon landed gently on her arm, allowing her to examine him. "Young, but strong," she murmured. "And bonded to you," she added, looking at Marcus. That is significant. Solara said the same thing. Marcus replied. She's in danger. The Scorch Lords attacked her sanctuary, seeking the heart of Eldramar. Ember and I escaped through a portal, but she stayed behind to seal it. Elena's expression darkened. The Scorch Lords. They have sought dominion over the realms for millennia. If they control Eldramar's heart, they could eventually breach the barriers to other worlds, including Earth. That's why we're here, Marcus explained. Ember sensed the Earth fragment. We thought maybe we could use it somehow to help Solara. Your instincts were correct, Elena said, approaching the pedestal. The hearts are connected across realms. With the proper knowledge, one can be used to communicate with, or even travel to, the others. She turned to them, her expression grave. But such power comes with great risk. Opening pathways between realms could weaken the barriers further, allowing threats to pass through. Marcus felt his hopes sink. So we can't help her? I didn't say that, Elena replied with a slight smile. I said there was risk. The question is whether the risk of action outweighs the risk of inaction. She gestured to the heart fragment. If the Scorch Lords gain full control of Eldramar's heart, they will eventually find ways to reach other realms. The barriers are already weakening. We may have no choice but to act first. Ember chirped emphatically, flying back to Marcus's shoulder. I believe your dragon friend agrees, Elena said. And I'm inclined to trust the judgment of dragon kin in matters of the heart. They are bound to it in ways we humans can only dimly understand. What do we need to do? Marcus asked. Elena approached the pedestal, placing her hands on either side of the heart fragment. First, we must see what is happening on Eldramar. Then we can determine our course. She began to chant in a language Marcus didn't recognize, the same flowing script that adorned the cave walls. The heart fragment pulsed in rhythm with her words, its light growing brighter until it projected a shimmering image in the air above the pedestal. Marcus recognized the forest of Eldramar, but it was changed. Vast swathes were blackened and burned, the once mighty trees reduced to charred husks. The image shifted to show the temple where he and Ember had taken the heart, now half collapsed and surrounded by Scorch Lords. Then it moved again, revealing a hidden valley deep in the mountains, where survivors had gathered, various species Marcus hadn't seen during his brief time on Eldramar, and at their center, Solara, wounded but alive. She survived, Marcus whispered, relief washing over him. Ember chirped joyfully. The image zoomed in on Solara, who seemed to sense their observation. She looked up, her amber eyes widening in recognition. Her lips moved, though no sound came through the connection. She's trying to tell us something, Elena said, concentrating harder. The image flickered, then stabilized with greater clarity. Marcus, Solara's voice came through, distorted but understandable. The Scorch Lords control half the heart now. They broke it when they breached the chamber. We have the other half, but they hunt us relentlessly. Without the complete heart, Eldramar is dying. How can we help? Marcus called to the image. The fragments across realms are still connected, Solara replied. If you have found Earth's Keeper, she can use its power to open a path. But be warned, once opened, others may follow. The image began to fade, Solara's form becoming transparent. The heart of Earth has a guardian. She managed before the connection broke completely. You must awaken it. The projection vanished, leaving the three of them in the dim light of the cavern. A guardian? Marcus looked to Elena. What did she mean? Elena's expression was troubled. Each heart has a protector, a being of great power bound to it since ancient times. Eldramar's guardians were the first dragon kin, ancestors of the Scorch Lords before they turned to darkness. Earth's guardian has slumbered for centuries, awakening only in times of greatest need. And where is this guardian? Marcus asked. Here, Elena replied simply, pointing to the heart fragment. Within, Ember chirped questioningly, approaching the pedestal again. He extended one small claw to touch the heart, then looked back at Marcus with clear intention in his eyes. I think he wants to try something, Marcus said. Elena nodded. The dragon kin have a connection to the hearts that transcends realms. Perhaps he can sense what we cannot. Ember placed both front claws on the heart fragment. The crystal began to pulse rapidly, its light shifting from golden to deep blue, the same color as Ember's scales in his true form. The small dragon closed his eyes, his entire body beginning to glow with the same light. Marcus stepped forward in alarm, but Elena held him back. "Wait," she said. "Watch." The light surrounding Ember grew more intense, and the dragon's form began to change, not to his cat disguise, but expanding, growing. His wings extended, broadening, his tail lengthened, his neck elongated. Within moments, what stood before them was no longer a cat-sized dragon, but a creature the size of a horse, majestic and powerful, with scales that shimmered like sapphires in the heart's light. "Ember," Marcus whispered, hardly believing his eyes. The dragon turned to look at him, and though his form had changed dramatically, those intelligent eyes were unmistakable. He chirped, now a deeper, resonant sound, and lowered his head to Marcus's level. "He has connected with the Guardian's essence," Elena explained, awe in her voice. "The heart has granted him a portion of its power, allowing his true nature to manifest fully." Ember extended one wing, inviting Marcus to touch him. The scales were warm beneath his fingers, humming with energy. A sense of connection flowed between them, stronger than before, and suddenly Marcus could hear words in his mind, not spoken, but clear as speech. "We can help Solara now," Ember's mental voice said. "I can open the way." Marcus looked to Elena. "He says he can open a pathway to Eldramar." She nodded. "The Guardian's power allows it. But the risk remains. Opening a door works in both directions. The Scorch Lords already have part of Eldramar's heart," Marcus pointed out. "They'll find a way through eventually. Better to act now, on our terms, than wait for them to come to us." Elena considered this, then nodded slowly. "You're right. And perhaps there is a way to minimize the risk." She approached the pedestal again, placing her hands on the heart fragment. "If we use Earth's heart to create a controlled pathway, one that responds only to those who bear a fragment, we could help Solara without fully breaking the barriers." Ember's voice sounded in Marcus's mind again. "I would need to return to Eldramar to complete the connection." The implication hit Marcus like a physical blow. "You'd have to stay there?" The dragon nodded, regret evident in his mental voice. "For a time, but not forever. Once the hearts are stabilized and the Scorch Lords defeated, travel between realms could be possible again." "I'm going with you." Then, Marcus said immediately, "Your world needs you too," Ember replied. "Someone must guard Earth's heart while Elena prepares the controlled pathway." Elena looked between them, understanding dawning in her eyes. "The dragon speaks to you," she said to Marcus. "That bond is rare and precious. If you choose to separate, even temporarily, it should not be a decision made lightly." Marcus felt torn. His duty to Earth, to humanity, pulled him in one direction. His bond with Ember, his promise to help Solara, pulled him in another. And beneath it all was a growing sense that the fates of both worlds were more intertwined than anyone had realized. "There must be another way," he insisted. Elena was silent for a moment, then spoke carefully. "There is a possibility, not without risk, but perhaps a compromise." She looked at the heart fragment thoughtfully. "If you were to carry a small piece of Earth's heart, like the one you already possessed without knowing it, you could travel to Eldramar with Ember, help Solara, and still maintain a connection that would allow your return. Like an anchor between worlds," Marcus said, understanding. "Exactly, but it would make you a target for the Scorch Lords. If they captured you and took the fragment, they'd have pieces of both hearts," Marcus finished. "Another risk." Ember's mental voice came again, determined. "We faced them before. We can do so again." Marcus looked at the dragon, his friend, his companion through the strangest journey of his life, and made his decision. "We'll go together. Help Solara, stop the Scorch Lords, then return to establish a proper connection between the realms." Elena nodded, a hint of pride in her eyes. "Then let us prepare. The journey you face will not be easy, but you will not face it alone." She placed her hands on the heart fragment again. The Earth remembers the old ways, even when its people forget. There are others who will aid you, both here and on Eldramar. As Elena began the ritual to prepare the fragment Marcus would carry, he stood beside Ember, one hand resting on the dragon's shoulder. Whatever dangers awaited them on Eldramar, they would face them together. A lost human and the dragon who had crawled into his lap by a campfire in an alien forest, now bound by friendship and purpose across the boundaries of worlds. The heart fragment began to glow, opening a window onto another world, a world of magic and danger, of ancient conflicts and new possibilities. A world where humanity's adaptability and determination might yet turn the tide in a struggle as old as the realms themselves. Marcus took a deep breath and stepped forward, ready for whatever came next. After all, the greatest adventures often begin with the smallest moments, like a fire lit in a dark forest and an unexpected friend finding warmth in a stranger's lap. And that was the end of the story. If you listened all the way to here, don't forget to leave feedback about what you thought of the story in the comments, whether positive or negative. Your feedback helps us improve. Also, leave your like and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this one. And I'll leave here on the screen another video that I'm sure you'll like. Big hug, and see you in the next story.